Cheer-Uppers, I'm Deb Krier, the co-host of Cancer and Comedy, where our mission is to heal cancer-impacted people through hope and humor. Something we like to call turning the grim into a grin. Well, today on Cancer and Comedy, we're going to talk about how comedy breaks the tension about cancer. Now, here's the host of Cancer and Comedy podcast, Dr. Brad Miller.
Hey, hey, hey. Thank you, Deb. Always a pleasure and a privilege to be with you and to hear the smile on your voice and to see the smile on your face and to know that you are just energized and excited about life in so many ways. And cancer is not going to get the best of you or of I or of our cancer and comedy audience. And that's what we're here to do, to provide a place where people can indeed to know that a cheerful heart is good medicine in their life. And we love to help people by offering a way to cope with hope with cancer. That's something we like to call to turn the grim into a grin. And we like to do that, among other ways, is help people get connected to our cancer and comedy community. And you can start to do that by simply going to cancerandcomedy.com/follow. Hey, Deb, here I live just outside of Indianapolis, Indiana. I think the temperature got up to 0 today, and
Yeah.
we've got about half a foot of snow on the ground. And you're in Atlanta. I know it got a little cold there, but I got a couple of cold weather dad jokes for you.
Oh,
You ready?
good. Good,
You ready?
good.
You ready for it?
Yeah.
Why do bears have hairy coats?
I don't know.
Fur protection.
Cute.
Yeah, when my kids were younger, they would sometimes complain about the house being too cold, and I would say, "Son, if you're cold, you should go sit in the corner." And my son would say, "Dad, why?" I said, "Well, if you go in the corner, it's 90 degrees there."
And I bet he rolled his eyes at you, didn't he?
Still does, still does.
Yep.
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah.
Yep. Well, we love these jokes, and we will have another one, folks, after our conversation. But then, of course, we have our very important Faith It or Break It segment. Well, we would love for you to be part of our cancer and comedy community, where together we crush cancer with a message of how to cope with hope and humor. Please follow Cancer and Comedy at cancerandcomedy.com/follow. Well, as we are recording this, you recently attended Podfest, and you were telling me all about a speaker you heard who really was talking about kind of how to use comedy to diffuse this topic. So tell us a little bit more about that.
Well, indeed, I was privileged to go to Podfest, which is an annual convention of podcasters and people who are creative content creators, and that's what we work on here at the Cancer and Comedy Podcast. And in fact, that's where you and I met a couple years ago, isn't it, at
It
Podfest?
is, yeah.
And I know I was in a group of people where we were talking about health related podcasts and so on. And I heard your laugh and I heard your story about overcoming cancer. And I said, that's a person I need to get to know. And so here we are a couple of years
We
later,
love Podfest. Yep.
and we do that. But one of the things we do there is we get exposed to different approaches to doing content creation, podcasts, and
Hmm.
so on.
Hmm.
And I was I given the opportunity to give to do a 3-minute open mic comedy open mic set
Hmm.
at one of part of the occasions, and was able to give a talk at another occasion. But I went to the class taught by a professional comedian by the name of Stephen Kimbrough, but it's basically that, how to create a 3-minute
Hmm.
comedy stand-up routine.
Hmm.
And I'm kind of, very green at anything like that. So I went to his class, but he spent a great deal of the time, interestingly enough, Deb, talking about, not so much joke telling, but why, and kind of the dynamics and even the
Right.
breakdown of how joke telling and being a comedian
Hmm.
is all about. And so he said the main purpose or the main reason that jokes work or a comedy routine works is because it breaks tension. And I
Right.
thought that was very interesting
Hmm.
because he talked about how the tension people have in their lives. It might be
Hmm.
about politics, or it might be
Hmm.
about your finances, or your marriage, or your job, or any number
Hmm.
of reasons that people have tension in your life, and how a joke or a comedy routine is a way to look at it or to have an unexpected response
Mhm.
to the expected statement of what
Mhm.
the setup of what the joke's
Mhm.
about, and whatever your health situation is or whatever it is, that and then the unexpected response or incongruent type of thing, which is far apart usually from the
Mhm.
setup, which is what makes it funny,
Mhm.
and so certainly you and I know, and even we part of the discussion in this workshop about comedy was how our health and things like cancer are great sources of tension and stress in our
Mhm.
lives, and
Right.
there's
Mhm.
a lot of research and so on, and that shows that tension and stress, has often been attributed to the cause of
Mhm.
cancer or other
Right.
bad things in
Mhm.
life.
Mhm.
So the point was how then if you have this stress in your life, one of the ways that you could respond to the stress, cancer or something else, is through comedy, is through
Mhm.
laughter, is through some way reason to break the stress. And how if you keep it going, he said in a comedy routine of whatever 15, 20 minutes, the idea is to get a laugh every 30 seconds or so that you build up waves of laughter. And I think
Ah.
we've
Mhm.
all been had this where we've just got caught up giggling or laughing, and we kind of get contagious. One person
Mhm.
laughs and the other
Right.
one laughs, and that's of course what
Sometimes we're laughing at the person next to us.
that's
Mhm.
right. Or we get caught up, we get the giggles
Mhm.
or whatever it is,
Mhm. Mhm.
And he says, and comedians are looking for that because there's a
Mhm.
psychological, physiological response that happens if you can get that rolling laughter,
Mhm.
waves of
Right.
laughter going,
Mhm.
and how people then feel. People, you even think about
Mhm.
how physiologically people laugh. They
Mhm.
start to shake, right? They start
Mhm.
to maybe
Mhm.
shake, or they start to kind of waver back and forth,
Mhm.
or they throw their head back in laughter. Things of this nature, that there's
Mhm.
physiological changes that
Mhm.
happen, and I hadn't thought too much about that before, but Kimbrough, his name is Stephen Kimbrough, brought this out about how this is a part of what you experience in a good comedy routine,
Mhm.
and how there's a physiological routine. Or people say,
Mhm.
I laughed so hard that my sides were splitting, things
Right.
like
My
this.
stomach hurt. All of those
Yeah.
things.
Oh,
Mhm.
yeah. Or I start coughing, and some people start
Mhm.
coughing, or hey, whatever, any number of things.
Mhm.
I laugh so hard that I peed my pants. We have
Yep,
all
I was
kinds of
gonna say somewhere in there we piddle.
yeah, there you go. You get the idea how the
Uh-huh.
the physiological responses to this,
Mhm.
and that's really what a comedian is
Mhm.
going after. They get that waves of
Right.
things going,
Mhm.
and it reminded me how some of the things we talk about here, how therefore that is all good if you're dealing with some bad stuff in your life,
Mhm.
like cancer. And
Mhm.
so I just wanted to bring it up as an object of discussion here because
Mhm.
he went on to talk about, and I think it's true that there are psychological and physiological responses to that. But just give me your reaction to some of the
Mhm.
learnings that I had here
Yeah.
from a comedian. What do you think?
I obviously agree, and I think this is such an important topic to always be thinking about. One of the things that you had sent me a note about was that comedy, in many ways, is a safe way to discuss a taboo topic or
Yeah,
something that we're uncomfortable with. And when we make it into a joke, it just kind of lightens things up, so we can talk about the fact, and just kind of make everybody laugh a little bit, and it's that icebreaker, that tension breaker, and I love that concept. I think that is one of the ways where we use it a lot is and especially I think with cancer, when somebody's asking us, how are you doing, and I always, I will often tell people, well, I'm not looking up at 6 feet of dirt.
yeah,
You know? And now there are every once in a while I get an uncomfortable "ooh" laugh, but
yeah.
most of the time people are like, "Okay, she's doing okay. She's fine with discussing this." All of those things. And I think it's our way, to signal that, yeah, it's okay to talk about this.
Reveals some of those dark places that we don't always want to go to,
Mhm.
but we can help us to be an inroad into it and help us
Right.
to. And if you allow us then to talk about it a little bit, the icebreaker, as you mentioned
Mhm,
there, can there be empowering and
mhm,
enlightening and open
mhm,
up a door to a deeper
mhm,
discussion, to a deeper
mhm,
opportunity that can be even more
mhm,
healing and healing through the revealing of what
mhm.
is going on.
Right.
And so I think I heard this little story and kind of a research here, a little about a cancer patient went into their regular treatment session wearing a Superman T-shirt, and the nurse smiled and said, "You're Superman today, huh?" The patient replied, "Well, Superman has his kryptonite, and I have my chemo, but just like him, it only makes me stronger in the
Yep.
end."
Mhm,
And so it was a little humorous aside,
mhm,
how you can
mhm,
kind of see things from a different perspective, and I think
mhm.
that's part of what a good comedy routine does. It
Right.
helps you see this,
Mhm,
whatever it is, marriage, cancer,
mhm,
workplace, sex,
mhm,
other stuff, and that is kind of in its place, but you see it
mhm,
in a different perspective, and you get a
mhm,
you get jolted into a new understanding of it, and it just
mhm.
helps you a little bit,
Mhm. Right. And it also helps us build those social bonds,
right?
and build relationships with our caregivers. And I love this concept. And I might have mentioned this on the program before. Somewhere when I started dealing with all of this, they always ask you when you go in, what's your name, what's your date of birth?
Yeah,
And I tell
right.
them my name is Anastasia Beaverhausen. I don't know where that came from, but it's just a silly name, right? And so, in the infusion room, they have picked up on that and they have decided that I am Princess Anastasia Beaverhausen. So we all must do the queen wave. And so when I arrive for my monthly treatments, they will, from the back of the room, somebody will shout, "The princess is here." I mean, all sorts of things. And of course, all the patients in the room are looking at us like, "What the heck?" But it's something that I then joke about with my caregivers, and we have fun talking about that. And it's just, it's kind of a way for us to bond.
Yeah. And I think it can also diffuse the horror of it if you allow it to
Right.
in some
Mhm,
regard. I met a gentleman who dealing with a number of health problems, but basically in his case, he has a whole podcast about he was homeless at one time and he was able to
mhm,
now do have a successful career as
mhm,
a nurse. But he then, among the many things he had to deal with, was a really severe cancer
mhm,
situation. But he was saying how he named his cancer, he named his tumors, he called them Seymour. He says,
mhm,
Me and Seymour are going to
mhm,
battle here today, or I'm going to get
mhm.
rid of Seymour,
Oh,
or
yeah.
that kind of thing,
Yep.
And
Well, my cancer's arty.
yes, I know. And
And,
I even mentioned
mhm,
this gentleman how
mhm.
you do some of the same thing. You give
Yep.
names
Yeah.
to that,
Yeah,
and
and that came from the fact that when I was first diagnosed, they kept saying I had artifacts. What the
oh, that's
heck
right.
does that mean? Yes, and
Yeah,
I mean artifacts, right? I've got rocks, I've got, whatever, and but yeah, I had artifacts. And so arty was just kind of a natural extension of that. And I have a little cartoon arty. I mean, I have all sorts of things. I
right.
hadn't thought about that in a while that I had done that.
Well,
But
I thought about you when I met
mhm.
this gentleman. In fact, I hope he'll be a guest on our podcast
Oh, good.
sometime. He's agreed to it, and we'll get it done. But he Seymour was his guy. It
Mhm.
says me and
Mhm.
Seymour are we're going to battle, or we're going to go
Yeah.
and get rid of
Oh,
Seymour. And
yeah. Yep.
even here locally, there's a local
Mhm.
radio team here in my community who's nationally known for the Bob and Tom program. And anyhow, the Bob of the Bob and Tom had
Mhm.
cancer, really bad cancer,
Mm.
and he was saying how his radio partner for all those years. They've got a little kid, but this was a partner that he
Mhm.
wanted to get rid of. So he wanted to get rid of his cancer partner that it
Mhm.
was in his
Mhm.
life. And so
Yep.
that's how if we put some identification on it, then it can help us to diffuse
Mhm.
a little bit or deal with it in a different perspective.
Right.
And I think this is what the
Mhm.
comedian community I've been learning from
Mhm.
helps you to see things in a little different light, with
Mhm.
kind of an oddball screwed
Right.
up light. And
Right.
I
And
kind of like
sometimes it's a little, a little morbid humor
oh
even,
yeah, oh
but
yeah.
that's okay.
Yeah, where you can have self-depreciating humor and that kind of
Mhm.
thing. Or I know that a lot of doctors and nurses and caregivers kind of have a little bit of that going on to kind of keep
Mhm.
them sane when they
Right.
deal with
Mhm.
people. I have
Mhm.
a son who is a hospice care worker, and he always has some funny things to say about some of the
Mhm.
people that he works
Mhm.
with. Or, I've heard this type of joke said. I think you probably heard it, and maybe been involved with people around who've said something like this. Kind of self-depreciating thing about their hair, losing their
Mhm.
hair,
Right.
things of that
Yeah.
nature. Somebody said something like,
Mhm.
"Hey, I never wanted to be a trendsetter, but here I am, starting the new
Mhm.
fashion of
Mhm.
no hair, don't care,
Mhm.
that kind of a
Right, right.
thing." Or,
Yeah.
I'm
Mhm.
going to be a fashion model or
Mhm.
whatever for the
Mhm.
no hair, don't care type of thing.
Right.
Kind of a how
Mhm.
you look at it makes a
Mhm.
difference. And I know even in there was a community of people nearby here where a bunch of guys who had a butt. This is teenagers here, and this kind of thing happens once in a while. You hear about it, but in my local area, where it was one of their buddies had whatever cancer he had, he lost his hair. So all his
Mhm.
buddies, guys,
Mhm.
shaved their heads,
Right.
and
Yep.
a couple of the girls even got super short haircuts. They cut off their
Uh-huh.
hair. So, but
Mhm.
they had their bond. I forget what they called themselves, but it was the hair club for
Mhm.
whatever this
Mhm.
high school
I love
was.
it.
You
Uh-huh.
know, uh, that kind of thing. So
Mhm.
people can do that to help to
Right.
break the tension, and that's what
Right.
Kimber was
Mhm.
saying,
Mhm.
that comedy is a great tension breaker, tension
Mhm.
reliever. And my
Right.
goodness, don't we need that if we're going through the grimness of cancer or something like that? We need
Mhm.
something to intentionally break the
Mhm.
tension. Do
Right.
you agree?
Oh, I totally agree, and, when I was growing up, teenager, was when the TV show MASH was so
Oh,
popular,
right.
and I remember one of the times somebody asked the Hawkeye, the Alan Alda character, why they were always laughing and joking and being so silly and stupid, and he looked at him and he said, "We can laugh or we can cry." And, and that really struck me because I think, and right, a lot of times we'll do both. We'll
Yeah.
start laughing and then we might have tears.
Yeah.
Or we might have tears and then we all of a sudden are struck with this is the stupidest situation and we start laughing. So I think a lot of times they are kind of tied together.
Oh, yeah. I think right, just on the flip side, or other side of the coin of that breaking of tension is grief.
Mhm.
Is the
Right.
fact that we're
Mhm.
we're dealing with our deterioration of our health, or
Mhm.
if it's a loved one, we're dealing with a change in the nature of the
Mhm.
relationship. Or, we are talking about our demise, that we're going to die
Right. Uh-huh.
someday, and this might be it that does it for us. But I think one of the things that Kimber shared, and I've learned as well, is all this data, which is the connection between the actual act of laughing and the
Mhm.
physical things
Right.
that you said, the
Mhm. The
grief thing.
endorphins, all
The
of those. Yeah.
Yeah,
Mhm.
I'll just touch on a couple of them that was refreshing my mind. There's the dopamine
Mhm.
release, and
Mhm.
release of the dopamine creates feelings of pleasure and
Mhm.
satisfaction. So that's laughter does that for us. And
Mhm.
there's their endomorphin production, which helps to elevate our mood.
Mhm.
So that happens too.
Mhm. Right.
And then I'll just touch on the other ones here. Cortisol reduction.
Mhm.
We reduce the
Mhm.
cortisol. That's stress relief
Mhm.
right there. It's a kind of a buffer also against future stress and that kind of thing. And then there's a couple of ones here. The neural network activation, which means our brain starts to function in such a way that we start to light up by stimulation rather
Mhm.
than kind of being just kind of
Mhm.
deteriorating, that kind of a thing. And so the neurons are lighting up. In other words, we're thinking, we're
Mhm.
laughing, we're
Mhm.
engaged. And one more, serotonin effects, which serotonin helps to improve our mood as well. And it's kind of, it says why people with good sense of humor often show greater emotional resilience. So when bad things come, they can handle it better. I don't know
Mhm.
your reaction to that. That's what I learned in this
Yeah.
seminar.
And we've talked about that a lot on the program, and I think that is one of the things that is, we don't always understand, but it is there are physiological health benefits to the good belly laugh, the fun little giggle, even just lightening your mood.
Right.
And I've been studying a bit about this and one of the things that my courses are talking about is, if you start feeling a negative thought, reaction, whatever, acknowledge it, but then replace it with a very positive thought. And they said, that when you start doing that, it actually becomes a habit. You don't want to ignore those bad things. We have to feel them. We have to go through them, but we don't have to wallow in them, as my grandfather would have said. And I think, we just all know when we laugh, we feel better.
Yeah. Wallow. What a great word. Wallow. I haven't heard that one
Wallow.
in a
Well, I think pigs wallow, don't they?
while. there, we, there we go. Well, I think that's part of what we're wanting to do here on the
Mhm,
Cancer Comedy Podcast. Cancer is kind of a metaphor not only for the disease of cancer, but anything that will eat away at you, anything that
mhm,
will just decay you. And then comedy is about things that can lift us up and
right.
to light us up and things like
Mhm,
that, and to make us smile and that kind of
mhm,
thing, because they do help.
mhm,
They do. It's like
right.
some of I've heard just said simply humor helps. And so
Mhm,
I'm glad to be a part of this with you as we
mhm,
continue on this process of helping to offer hope to people coping with cancer, to heal them and
mhm.
help to heal them with hope and humor.
Right.